It started with something so small it barely made a ripple at first. Kate told me she had to go to Seattle for a quick one-day work trip. Some kind of internal presentation at her company's regional office. I was in the middle of chopping vegetables when she casually brought it up. "Oh, by the way, I'll be in Seattle tomorrow." She made it sound like she was just grabbing coffee down the street, not catching a flight. I didn't think twice. These work things came up now and then, especially since she got promoted last fall. She handled mid-level accounts for a medical tech firm and was often on calls with reps across the country. The occasional travel wasn't weird. What was weird was the way she told me. No details. No usual rundown of the schedule. Just a quick mention followed by a fast change of subject. "Did you say Seattle?" I asked. "Yeah, just for a day," she said, not looking up from her phone. "Fly out in the morning, back at night. Just meetings, nothing interesting." That was that. Tuesday came and went. I went to work like usual, checked in around noon. She didn't answer, but I figured she was busy. Around 7 that evening, I sent a "how's it going" text. No reply. Then 9 rolled around. 10. I started getting that tight feeling in my chest, not panic, just discomfort. Like when you realize the oven's been on too long or you left your car window cracked during a storm. By midnight, I'd stopped pretending I wasn't worried. I texted twice, called once, and left a voicemail. No response. Then at 7:42 a.m. the next morning, the front door creaked open. I was halfway through making coffee when I heard her keys hit the dish by the door. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept, but not messy. Her makeup was light, her clothes too neat for someone who supposedly just spent the night in a hotel and got on an early flight. She was wearing a tan trench coat I'd never seen before. Her hair was pulled back in a loose bun, and there was something polished about her that didn't match the timing. "Morning," she said, walking past me with a smile that didn't quite land. "Sorry I didn't text. My phone died and I forgot my charger. Meetings ran long and I just crashed. Didn't mean to worry you." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But her phone? She's glued to it. I've seen her run back to the house in bare feet just because she left it charging in the kitchen. The idea that she just let it die in a strange city and didn't bother to find a charger, not even at the hotel, didn't fit. Kate's meticulous. The type to double-check gate numbers and track receipts. Still, I nodded and poured her a cup of coffee. She took it without much eye contact, and I didn't push. She was back. She was safe. That was supposed to be enough. But then came the suitcase. It was sitting by the stairs, half-zipped. I bent down to carry it up for her while she showered, just trying to be helpful. That's when I saw it. Tucked neatly between her folded black slacks and a zipped-up makeup bag was a dress. Pale blue. Silk, maybe satin. Elegant, form-fitting, the kind you wear to dinner, not a business presentation. And it smelled, not like Kate. She usually wore a vanilla amber blend, something soft and subtle. This was floral, almost powdery and strong. Like someone else's. I didn't touch it. Just stood there, staring at it for a minute too long. That evening, while we were sitting on the couch half-watching TV, I asked her about the dress. "Hey, random question," I said, trying to sound casual. "What's that blue dress in your bag? I don't think I've seen it before." She barely blinked. "Oh," she said quickly. "That's Jennifer's. She let me borrow it for a company event a while ago and must have slipped it into my bag. I guess she forgot to grab it when I stopped by her place last week." She said it smoothly, too smoothly. Like a script. She even added a soft laugh, like it was ridiculous that I'd even noticed. But here's the thing, Kate hadn't mentioned stopping by Jennifer's place. Not last week, not the week before. And I know Jennifer, she's 5 inches shorter than Kate, and there's no way that dress would have fit her. It didn't make sense. I didn't say any of that. I just smiled and nodded. But my brain? It clicked into gear. The pattern recognition switch flipped on. That low hum in your chest when you sense you've just stumbled onto something big, something dangerous. From that point forward, I couldn't unsee it. The next morning, I started noticing other things. Her phone was never out of her reach anymore. She used to leave it charging on the nightstand. Now it came with her into the bathroom, the laundry room, even the backyard when she stepped out to call her mom. And it had a new passcode. She changed it a week ago and brushed it off like it was no big deal. Just company policy, she said. Security stuff. But we'd never had passcodes before. Not hidden ones. We didn't need to. Or at least, I didn't think we did. Then there was her scent. Not just the unfamiliar perfume in the suitcase, but a new fragrance she started wearing. Something bolder, sharper. Like she was trying to reinvent herself. Pair that with the new lingerie I found in the laundry. Stuff I hadn't seen on her ever, and you start to ask questions. Not out loud. Not yet. Instead, I watched. I observed. Late nights at work became common. Weekend team-building events popped up every other Saturday. And her social media? Our couple photos slowly disappeared. First from the grid, then from her profile pic. When I asked why, she said she was refreshing her aesthetic. I remember just staring at her when she said that, as if our marriage was part of a color palette she was tired of. I didn't sleep much after that. Started waking up before dawn, checking the time, checking the quiet. Something had changed. Something was wrong. But the worst part wasn't that she was lying. The worst part was that she had gotten so good at it. After that night with the dress, everything shifted. It's weird how once a single lie cracks open, you start seeing all the ones that came before it. It's like walking into a room you've lived in for years and suddenly noticing the wallpaper's peeling. The baseboards are cracked, and the floorboards creak in a pattern you never heard before. That's what happened with Kate. For the longest time, I gave her the benefit of the doubt. Little things didn't bother me because we trusted each other, or I thought we did. But now, every one of those little things started to replay in my head like scenes from a movie I'd seen before but hadn't fully understood. Her phone, for one. It was always in her hand now, like an extra limb. I'd see her scroll while we watched TV, but she never laughed, never reacted. Just thumb flick after thumb flick. If I got up to get water or go to the bathroom, the phone came with her. She even took it into the shower. Claimed she liked to listen to music or podcasts. We used to leave our phones face up on the nightstand. Open. Unlocked. No secrets. Now, she kept hers on silent and upside down. I'm not stupid. I didn't want to become one of those people, digging through someone's phone or following them around like a detective. But I also wasn't willing to walk blindly anymore. One afternoon, while she was out running errands, I noticed her laptop left open. I didn't go digging, not then, but I did glance at the screen. Her email tab was open, and I saw the subject line of a message from someone named Evan R. It read, "Hope your legs recovered from last night, winky face." My stomach turned. I didn't click. I just closed the laptop. And then I sat in silence for 10 full minutes, staring at nothing. When she got back, I asked her how her errands went. She said fine, gave me a kiss on the cheek, and didn't mention Evan. That's when I knew. Not guessed, knew. But knowing doesn't mean acting right away. I didn't storm into the kitchen and throw accusations. I didn't ask who Evan was or what happened last night. Instead, I started replaying the last few months like a reel in my head, rewinding every moment I dismissed. Like when she told me her coworker Sam, a guy I'd met once and barely remembered, was moving to another team, and she had to stay late to help transition the project. That was 2 months ago. She stayed late 3 nights that week, got home after 11 each time, and I never saw a single email or heard a single phone call that confirmed the story. Or the time she canceled dinner with my parents because she had a work crisis. She even sent a photo of herself at what looked like an office desk. But now I realized that photo had no context. Just her laptop, a coffee mug, and her in a blouse she never wore again. Why would someone stage a photo like that unless they needed to prove they were somewhere they weren't? And then there was her appearance, subtle shifts that seemed innocent in the moment. New clothes, more makeup, gym memberships and yoga classes she never followed through on before. Lingerie that still had tags. When I complimented her, she brushed it off. "It's nothing," she'd say. "Just trying something new." But the trying didn't extend to us. Our int asterisk Macy had become mechanical, then non-existent. She flinched when I reached for her shoulder in bed. She turned away when I kissed her cheek. When I finally brought it up, she blamed stress. "Too much going on," she said, and I bought it. Because I wanted to. But no one buys lingerie they don't wear for the person they live with. And perfume doesn't just change overnight unless you're trying to impress someone new. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I needed to be rational. But at the same time, I felt like I was losing my grip on reality. Like gaslighting wasn't just something she was doing to me, but something I was doing to myself. I needed a line in the sand, something solid. Something I could point to and say, This is real." So I called my brother, Alex. Alex used to work as a private investigator. Nothing flashy, just background checks, surveillance, digital forensics. He left the job years ago, got burnt out. But he still had connections. Still knew the tools. And more than that, he knew me. He knew I wasn't the type to jump to conclusions. When I told him everything, he was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "You want me to follow her?" "I don't know," I replied. "Maybe. I need to know if I'm crazy." "You're not," he said. "But yeah, I'll do it." The next time Kate mentioned a work trip, this time to Portland, I didn't argue. I didn't blink. I said, "That's great. Hope it goes well." Inside, my heart was pounding. She left on a Thursday, packed light, wore a soft smile that looked real if you didn't know what to look for. She kissed me goodbye like we were still okay. Like she hadn't been slowly bleeding our marriage dry while I watched from the sidelines. Alex followed her car from the airport, tailing her rental down the freeway. I didn't hear from him that night. Didn't sleep. Every creak in the house sounded like a siren. Every shadow on the wall felt like confirmation of something I didn't want to see. When he called me the next morning, his voice was low and even. "You need to come over," he said. "I have something to show you." I didn't ask what. I already knew. The drive to Alex's place felt like a funeral march. My fingers gripped the wheel like it was the only thing holding me to the earth. My thoughts weren't words anymore, just flashes. Her laugh. Her phone screen lighting up with a message I wasn't allowed to see. That dress. That perfume. When I pulled into Alex's driveway, he was waiting on the porch, holding a manila envelope in his hands. He didn't say anything, just handed it to me and motioned toward the living room. I sat down, opened it, and everything I thought I knew about my marriage changed in an instant. But I'll get to that soon. All I'll say is, the second you stop ignoring the signs, the whole story starts to unravel faster than you ever imagined. And when it does, there's no putting it back together. I sat on Alex's couch, staring at the envelope in my lap like it might bite me. My hands hovered over the seal, then pulled back, then hovered again. You'd think after everything I'd seen and suspected, I'd be ready to face the truth. But the truth doesn't care if you're ready. It just waits, patiently, quietly, until you finally stop pretending. Alex didn't say much. He sat across from me, elbows on his knees, watching with the kind of somber focus he usually saved for funerals. Maybe that's what this was, in a way, a funeral for the version of my marriage I thought still existed. When I finally opened the envelope and pulled out the stack of photos, I felt the world tilt. It wasn't even the worst one that hit me first. It was something subtle, the way Kate stood next to him. Her posture, relaxed, familiar, like she belonged there, like she'd stood there before. His name was Evan. I recognized him instantly, tall, lean, a few years younger than me. He worked at her company. I'd met him once at a holiday party. I even shook his hand. Funny how you can look someone in the eye and have no idea they're about to ruin your life. Photo after photo confirmed it wasn't a coincidence or a misunderstanding. There was one of them walking out of a motel. Not the hotel in Portland where she claimed to be staying, but some mid-tier roadside place an hour and a half outside the city. Her hair was messy. His hand was on her back. They were laughing. Another showed them hugging by his car, and then walking into a room together. They came out hours later, her in different clothes, his shirt untucked, looking like they'd just woken up. And then there was the photo by the motel's breakfast bar. Early morning light spilling in through a window as Kate sat on Evan's lap. Stirring sugar into a coffee cup like this was normal. Like I didn't exist. The timeline matched her work trip perfectly. Down to the hour. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just stared. This wasn't suspicion anymore. This wasn't gut instinct. This was proof, clear, cold, and in full color. The kind of truth that punches the air out of your lungs and leaves you quietly suffocating. Alex watched me for a minute before speaking. "I'm sorry, man," he said. "I didn't want to be right." "Yeah," I said. My voice sounded foreign. "Me neither." I took the envelope and left without saying much else. The sun was shining outside, birds chirping, kids on bikes rolling past like nothing was wrong in the world. But my world had shifted. Permanently. At home, I walked upstairs to our bedroom. Everything looked the same, which somehow made it worse. The bed was still made. Her robe was still hanging behind the door. Her vanity was cluttered with perfumes, lotions, little glass jars I never understood the purpose of. One of them was the new perfume, the one I'd smelled in the suitcase. I took the envelope and slid the photos back inside. Then I opened the drawer where she kept old love letters, anniversary cards, notes we'd left each other over the years. I found the one she gave me on our 3rd anniversary, cream-colored stationery, a pressed flower still tucked inside, her handwriting looped and open. I slid the photos into that same envelope. Then I wrote a new note. Congratulations on your successful presentation. I placed it on top, sealed the envelope, and left it on her vanity, right next to her jewelry box. Right where she couldn't miss it. The rest of the day was a blur. I didn't turn on the TV. Didn't answer my phone. Just sat on the edge of the bed and stared at nothing for what felt like hours. She came home that evening like it was any other day. The moment she stepped into the bedroom and saw the envelope, everything shifted. I watched from the hallway out of her line of sight. She picked it up slowly, like she already knew what was inside. She didn't say anything. Didn't scream. She just sat on the bed and opened it. She flipped through the photos one by one. Her face stayed frozen. No gasps. No excuses. No reaching for a lie. When she finally looked up and saw me standing in the doorway, I expected her to speak. But she didn't. She just blinked. I said nothing. Silence did what words couldn't. It stripped away the performance. There was no act to put on, no story to fabricate. Only a shared awareness that we both knew the curtain had dropped. Eventually, I turned and walked downstairs. I went to the fireplace and pulled out our wedding photo, the one framed under glass, taken at golden hour in a vineyard just outside Napa. It used to be my favorite picture of us. Now it looked like a joke. Like a screenshot asterisk T from a movie that had lied to me. I pried open the frame, tore the photo in half, dropped it into the fire. It curled and blackened slowly like it didn't want to let go. Then I pulled out our marriage certificate, folded it once, twice, then again, and I ripped that too. I burned it piece by piece, watching the paper glow and curl into ash. Not out of rage. Out of clarity. There was no screaming. No punching walls. No drama. Just a slow, deliberate removal of every symbol we had built. Like scrubbing graffiti off a wall. Like erasing someone else's handwriting from your story. Kate didn't come downstairs for a long time. When she did, she looked pale. Hollow. She stood at the edge of the living room like a ghost. Her eyes went to the fireplace. She saw the ashes. She didn't ask. I didn't offer. We were living in the same house, but it felt like two separate universes had suddenly realized they could no longer coexist. That night, I slept in the guest room. Not out of spite, out of necessity. Sharing a bed with someone who'd been in someone else's wasn't something I could pretend to do. I lay on that smaller mattress, staring at the ceiling, wondering what I was supposed to feel. Anger? Grief? Relief? All I felt was quiet. The kind that settles after an explosion. I realized then that the worst part wasn't the betrayal itself. It was knowing she would have kept going if I hadn't found out. The thing about betrayal is that once it hits you, fully, undeniably, the fire doesn't last. It burns hot for a second, then dies into something worse, silence. Not just the absence of noise, but the collapse of meaning. The space between two people where something used to live. That's what the next few days felt like with Kate. Cold, quiet, airless. She didn't deny the photos. Didn't scream or beg. She just moved through the house like a shadow, keeping her distance, watching me out of the corner of her eye like I might explode. But there was no explosion coming. I'd already had mine, not in fire or yelling, but in ash. After I left the envelope on her vanity, she never brought it up. Never said a word about the pictures or the note. For a while, I wondered if she was trying to calculate a move, some way to twist this, redirect the story. But no. I think she saw what I saw. There was nothing left to salvage. One night, 2 days after the envelope, I came into our bedroom and found her sitting on the edge of the bed, just staring at the wall. Fully dressed, lights off. She didn't turn when I walked in. Didn't even blink. She looked like she was waiting for something, maybe a fight, maybe forgiveness. I gave her neither. I went to the closet, grabbed a sweatshirt and walked right back out. That was when I knew the anger was over. All that was left was detachment. I stopped wearing my wedding ring the next morning. It was a habit, taking it off before showers or yard work, but now it stayed off. I left it on the kitchen counter beside the coffee pot. She didn't say anything when she saw it. Just looked at it a little too long before walking away. Later that afternoon, I walked through the house alone. Each room felt like a museum exhibit of a life that had expired quietly without anyone noticing. The photos on the walls, the gifts from anniversaries, the framed print with "our story" above the date of our wedding, it all felt like lies dressed in sentiment. I started in the living room. Took down the canvas of our wedding vows. I remember we had that custom made on Etsy. Her handwriting, my handwriting, side by side. Now it just looked pathetic, a contract scrawled in ink no one honored. I dropped it into a garbage bag. Next came the Polaroids on the fridge. She used to love those little snapsh *ts, blurry selfies from road trips, cooking together, birthdays where we both pretended to smile like it still meant something. I peeled them off one by one and tossed them in without ceremony. Then the bookshelves. There was this memory box she'd made for our 5th anniversary, ticket stubs, dried flowers, a hotel key card from our trip to Vancouver. I opened it and stared for a minute. Then I dumped the entire thing in the trash. Not out of spite. Out of clarity. I wasn't preserving history anymore. I was clearing a crime scene. By the time I got to the fireplace, it felt like I was on autopilot. I took down the photo frame, the one that held our wedding picture, the one we'd always said made us look like the happiest version of ourselves. Maybe we were, that day? Or maybe we were just actors in a play we both wanted to believe. I took the photo out, held it for a second, and felt nothing. Then I tore it in half. Watched the two pieces separate in my hands, her face on one side, mine on the other. Into the fire it went. The paper curled instantly, blackened edges flickering like it was ashamed to have ever existed. I sat there and watched it disappear. I wasn't angry. I was focused. Surgical. Later, I found the envelope from our marriage license, the certificate we'd once joked about laminating just in case we needed proof someday. I shredded that too. Slowly. Deliberately. Each rip was like peeling a layer of skin that didn't belong to me anymore. That night, when I sat alone in the living room, the house felt cleaner, not physically, but emotionally. Lighter, almost. The absence of those symbols didn't hurt like I thought it would. They didn't feel like memories. They felt like props. Kate came downstairs at some point. I didn't look up from the laptop. I could feel her eyes on the fireplace. She noticed the missing picture. She probably smelled the burnt paper. Still, she said nothing. We lived like ghosts after that. Not fighting. Not speaking. Just existing in the same space, avoiding contact like magnets flipped the wrong way. I moved into the guest room by the end of the week. She didn't protest. I started locking the door at night. Not because I was afraid, but because I wanted the boundary to be unmistakable. I needed a line she couldn't cross anymore. Then one night I heard her. It was late. Quiet. I was heading down the hallway for a glass of water when I caught her voice. She was in the office, door cracked, light spilling out, and she was on the phone. I paused. Not close enough to see her, but close enough to hear the tone. She was whispering. Laughing softly. I couldn't make out everything, but then I heard it, his name. Evan. I felt my jaw tighten, but I didn't move. I know, she said, her voice low and warm. He's being so dramatic. He won't even talk to me. Pause. He's just emotional. It's like he's still shocked I had a life without him. She laughed again. Not a nervous laugh. Not a regretful one. A mean one. Then came the line that burned itself into my brain. He won't leave. He thinks he's making some big statement, but honestly, he's too weak to actually walk away. I stood there frozen, my hand gripping the banister. Too weak. She thought she had me cornered. Like I was some wounded animal still clinging to the edge of a relationship that only existed in my mind. That was her true face. Not the version that cried during rom-coms. Not the girl who made me birthday pancakes or left notes in my work bag. This was who she really was when no one was watching, the version that mocked me to the man she betrayed me with. And just like that, the silence between us changed. It wasn't numb anymore. It was final. The next morning, she came into the kitchen while I was making coffee. She gave me this look like maybe we could talk. Maybe now that the dust had settled, I'd be open to something. Do you want to talk? She asked, like it was a peace offering. I turned, handed her a copy of the house key I'd taken off her ring, and said, "No. You had your chance." She flinched just a little. Like she'd hoped the worst was over. But the worst hadn't even started. Because now I wasn't grieving. I was planning. After I overheard her on the phone with Evan, I didn't sleep that night. I lay in the dark guest room, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out how I ever thought I knew the person sleeping just down the hall. The woman who used to trace circles on my arm when we watched movies, who used to text me "made your favorite" with a picture of dinner, she wasn't just gone. She was never real to begin with. What I heard her say, calling me too emotional, too weak, it stripped away the last fragments of illusion. No more wondering if this was a mistake or a breakdown. No more questions about whether I'd failed her somehow. She wasn't confused. She wasn't torn. She was cruel. In the morning, I waited in the kitchen with a mug of coffee, calm as ever, like I hadn't heard her betray me twice, once with her body, again with her words. She walked in wearing one of those effortless outfits she knew I liked. Hair tied back. Light makeup. As if this was a normal day. She froze when she saw me. Morning, she said, cautious. I nodded. Sit down. She tilted her head slightly. Why? Because I know, I said. All of it. Her lips parted slightly, but she didn't ask, know what. She knew exactly what I meant. That alone told me everything. She sat down across from me, posture stiff, arms crossed. I heard you last night, I said. With Evan. Every word. There it was. The moment of truth. She didn't cry. She didn't apologize. She didn't even deny it. Instead, she rolled her eyes. Okay, she said, drawing the word out like it was my fault I'd been eavesdropping. So now what? You going to throw a tantrum? That's when I saw her for who she really was, not a woman who made a mistake, not someone who lost her way, but someone who resented being caught. She wasn't ashamed. She was annoyed. I stared at her, trying to feel anything: anger, heartbreak, shock, but the only thing left in me was a quiet disgust. You cheated, I said, my voice low. You lied. And then you laughed about it behind my back like I was a joke. She shrugged. You were never really present, Mark. Always working. Always tired. You barely looked at me anymore. There it was, the rationalization. The inevitable pivot where it became my fault. Is that why you disappeared into a motel with him? I asked. Because I didn't notice your new perfume fast enough? She rolled her eyes again like I was being dramatic. It wasn't planned, okay? It just happened. And yeah, maybe I liked how it felt. Maybe I liked being seen. I wanted to scream. Not from rage, from the sheer emptiness of it. How casually she said that. How cold. You were seen, I said. For 10 years. Every damn day. Yeah, she said, voice tightening. Then why did I feel invisible? I leaned forward, elbows on the table. You weren't invisible, Kate. You were just bored. And instead of growing with me, you outgrew the version of yourself you were when we started this. And rather than talk to me, your husband, you turned me into the enemy so you could feel okay about being selfish. Silence. I could see something shifting behind her eyes, not guilt. Panic. Not because of what she did, but because the control was slipping. You think you've figured everything out, don't you? She said, her voice low and sharp now. Like you're the victim in some grand betrayal story. I didn't flinch. No, I said. I think I married someone who never knew how to tell the truth. And now that the spotlight's on her, she's cracking. She stood up, suddenly defensive. You don't get to stand there and act like some noble martyr. You ignored the signs just as much as I hid them. That's on you too. No, I said, standing too. What I did was trust you. What you did was use that trust like a shield while you built a second life behind my back. She stepped toward me. You always think you're the smartest guy in the room. No, I said, stepping around her. I just don't think you expected me to stop caring this quickly. I left the kitchen without another word. She didn't follow. That was the last conversation we had where she tried to justify anything. After that, it changed. She wasn't soft anymore. Wasn't trying to cry or act confused. She was cold. Hostile. Sarcastic even. Every interaction was like a test of endurance. She dropped snide comments like, oh, you're still here? Or, guess I'll have to cancel my bad wife membership card. She thought the sarcasm would mask her guilt or maybe make me angry enough to play the villain. But I didn't bite. I stayed calm. Focused. Unshaken. One night, I found her in the living room watching TV like everything was fine. I walked in and said I spoke to a lawyer. She turned the volume down. Really? That fast? Fast? I said. This isn't fast. This is overdue. She crossed her arms, eyes narrowing. You're just doing this to punish me. No, I said. I'm doing this because you already punished us both the second you decided I wasn't enough. She didn't reply. I walked out and left her sitting there. Later, I found her going through my office drawers, clearly looking for something. Maybe money. Maybe documents. I didn't stop her. I just leaned against the doorframe and said, whatever you're looking for, it's not in here. She spun around. I wasn't. You were, I said. But go ahead. Keep digging. You might find your dignity in there. That earned me a glare sharp enough to cut glass. But again, I didn't care. The more she acted out, the calmer I became. Her bitterness was fuel, but not in the way she expected. It didn't make me lash out. It made me sharper. Every cruel word, every smirk, every manipulative line, it all reinforced the same truth. I was right to leave her. She wasn't sorry. She was exposed. And now that the mask was off, all that was left was the ugly truth she'd been hiding for years. I wasn't watching a person unravel. I was watching one finally show who they'd been the whole time. The morning after she rifled through my office drawers, I made my move. I met with my lawyer, laid out the evidence, the photos, the timeline, even the recorded phone call. His advice was simple: stay calm, stay put, don't leave the house. If I walked out first, she could claim abandonment. That stuck with me. She'd already twisted one reality. I wasn't giving her a second chance to do it legally. So I took action quietly. Moved into the guest room permanently. Changed passwords. Opened a separate account. Made a checklist of everything that was mine, financially, emotionally, legally. I backed up every file, every text thread, every email chain twice. The first time she tried to talk, I didn't let her in. She stood outside the guest room door, knocking like she expected me to melt. "We can still work this out," she said through the wood. "We don't need lawyers." I didn't respond. When I finally emerged, she followed me into the kitchen, still trying to pretend we were equals in this. That we were negotiating. She saw the flash drive on the counter, snatched it up, and threw it on the floor like a child. "You're just making this worse," she hissed. "No," I said calmly. "You already made it worse. I'm just making it official." Her face changed then. No more smugness. Just a flash of fear the moment she realized this wasn't a bluff. She wasn't in control anymore. When the divorce papers arrived, I didn't flinch. I signed them in silence. She stood there waiting, maybe for a fight, maybe for forgiveness. But I handed her the second copy and walked away without a word. Later that day, I called her brother, Trevor. We'd been friends for years. I told him everything. At first, he didn't believe me, but when I sent the photos, his reply was blunt. I knew she was reckless. I didn't know she was this. The house fell silent after that. But inside, I wasn't broken, I was rebuilding. She tried one more time, tried to yell, cry, accuse. "You're just running away," she screamed. "No," I said. "I'm walking out of a trap." She didn't follow. And I didn't look back. The damage was done. But now finally I was free.